When Manchester United finished 15th, they were given a way out. £100 million on the table for United, £700,000 a week waiting for Bruno, 72 hours to decide. Take it or leave it. And the uncomfortable part? It actually made sense. Because behind the scenes, this wasn't random. United were already planning for life without him. Matheus Cunha had just signed from Wolves, and with Bryan and Mbeumo also joining from Brentford. 2 number 10s. A system that didn't really need Bruno anymore, not in the same way. So the idea was simple: move him deeper, change his role, or cash in while you still can. And for a moment, the club were ready to do it. Fans were split, polls everywhere. Ruben Amorim fought it, but even he wasn't fighting to keep Bruno the same. He was trying to change him. And that's where everything started to go wrong. Because once you try to change a player like that, you don't always lose him straight away. You lose something else first. And it took a whole season to realize what that was. Because when United finally went back, when they stopped trying to reshape him, Bruno Fernandes didn't just recover. He ended up somewhere only 3 players in this club's entire history have ever reached. But to understand how he got there, you had to go back to that moment, those 72 hours. Because from the outside, it looked simple. Money, tactics, squad planning, a football decision. But for Bruno, it wasn't like that, because it wasn't just an offer. It felt like a signal. No one said it outright, but it was clear enough the club were open to it, open to the idea that maybe this was the right time to move on. And that stays with you, not the number, the feeling that after everything, you might be replaceable. And that's where it shifted, because now it wasn't just about leaving, it was about what staying meant. Because staying didn't guarantee anything, not his role, not his position, not even his importance. The plan had already started changing. New players coming in, a system being built, and him being moved, not dropped, but changed. And that's a different kind of risk, because leaving resets everything, but staying means you have to live through it, prove it, fix something that isn't already working. And that's what he chose. Not the money, not the exit. He chose to stay in a situation that was already moving away from him. And looking back now, that decision explained everything that came after. Because when the season started, everything felt off straight away. United didn't just struggle, they had their worst start in decades. And that noise from the summer came straight back. The same question. Maybe they should have taken the money. Maybe this was the moment to rebuild. And on the pitch, it didn't look any clearer, because Amorim didn't adjust. He doubled down, insisted the system would work, even if the players didn't quite fit it. And this is where it got messy, because suddenly, Bruno and Mbeumo weren't complements. They were competing for the same spot in the team, the same role, and instead of building around both, one had to change. So Mbeumo was benched, and Bruno dropped deeper into central midfield, alongside Casemiro, an aging midfield, slower, easier to play through, and teams started to figure it out quickly. They got overrun, not occasionally, regularly, and still, nothing changed. There were conversations behind the scenes, disagreements about the system, about the shape, because the squad wasn't built for this. It was built for something else. But Ruben Amorim stuck with it, tried a back 4 once, then went straight back again. And that's when it really starts to show. Because in those 17 games, Bruno wasn't the same, not worse, just not himself. Fewer risks, fewer moments, less influence where it actually mattered. And when your most decisive player starts fading from games, you feel it in the chances, in the results, in the way everything slows down. And now that decision from the summer started to feel different because he stayed, but not in the role that made him who he is. And then it just ended, not gradually, just done, because everything had been building underneath it. The system wasn't quite working. The midfield kept getting exposed. Bruno was playing too far away from where games are decided. You could see it. You just didn't know when it would break. And then it did. All at once, Bruno got injured. 3 players left for AFCON. Amad Diallo, Bryan and Mbeumo, Noussair Mazraoui. And suddenly, there was nothing left to hide behind. The performances dropped. United kept dropping points. But the real collapse wasn't even on the pitch. It was behind the scenes. Because by then, that relationship between Ruben Amorim and Jason Wilcox was gone. Arguments over the system, over the players, over what this team was supposed to be, like nothing had changed. And that's when it flipped. And you could feel it while you were watching. This was coming, and then came the press conference. I came here to be a manager, not a head coach. And once that was said, it was finished. Because now it was public. And when you look back at it now, it doesn't feel like a collapse. It feels like something that had already broken, just finally being exposed. But then, everything changed, almost immediately. No long rebuild, no new system being introduced. Fletcher came in first, and the first thing he did was scrap it. That dreadful 3-4-3, gone. No more trying to make it work. No more asking players to fit something that clearly didn't fit them. And when Michael Carrick took over, he didn't bring it back. Same players, same season, but a completely different game. And the biggest difference was Bruno. He wasn't deep anymore. He wasn't sitting next to a holding midfielder, trying to control games from distance. He was higher, back where things actually happen. And you could see it straight away. Not in numbers, in how he played. Receiving the ball, already thinking forward, turning quicker, playing earlier, taking risks again, and after months of hesitation. That part of him came back instantly. And once that happened, everything else followed. The tempo lifted, the movement improved. Players started running earlier because they trusted what was coming. And suddenly, United didn't look controlled anymore. They looked dangerous again. And that's the part that's hard to ignore. Like those previous months hadn't happened. And that's when it hits you. This wasn't form, it was access. Because the moment he was put back where he belonged, City, Arsenal, big games, and he was in all of it, creating, driving, deciding, right where it mattered. And the numbers didn't build, they jumped. 9 assists in 10 games, after 7 in 17. That's not improvement, that's release. Because nothing new had been added. Just the removal of everything that had been slowing him down. And you could see what that did to the team. And that's when everything flipped completely. Because earlier in the season, he had looked like part of the system. Now, the system looked like it depended on him. And once that became clear, that summer decision started to feel very different. Because now it wasn't. Does he fit this team? It was something else. What does this team look like without him? Because this version of Bruno Fernandes wasn't new. It was the one they almost moved away from. And the moment it came back, so did everything else. And when it happens that fast, you can't ignore it. You have to accept it. And then it happened. Aston Villa at Old Trafford, March 15th. This was a huge game. Both teams level on 51 points. It was a 6-pointer in the top 4 race. But by then, you already knew what he'd been doing. 9 assists in 10. Everything running through him again. So this wasn't pressure, it was awareness. That one more moment was about to change how this season would be remembered. And when it came, it looked exactly like him. A perfectly weighted pass that sliced through Villa's defense. And as the ball went in, that was it. 100 goals, 100 assists. Only 3 players in this club's entire history had ever reached that. And now, he was one of them. Not built on one season. Not a short run. Years of it. Consistency, responsibility, output. At a club where that standard means something. And that's what made it land differently. Because this wasn't supposed to be the path. Not after the summer. Not after those months where he looked restricted. And yet, this is where it ended up. Not just playing well. Not just carrying the team. History. But it didn't feel like a finish line. There was no sense that this was the peak. If anything, it felt like something being put back in place. Like he hadn't arrived here. He'd just been put back on the path he was already on. And once you saw it like that, those earlier months didn't look like decline. They looked like interruption. And this felt like continuation. But the story wasn't finished. Because by match day 30, Bruno was just 5 assists away from the Premier League record. Not close. 5. And when you look at it, 16 already. 8 clear of everyone else. And that changed the question again. Because if he gets there, and United finish in the Champions League places, after finishing 15th the season before, then what are we actually watching? Because this isn't a player in a dominant team. This is a player dragging a team back up. And if that's the case, then maybe the question isn't about the record at all. It's this. Is he the player of the season? Because if influence matters, if context matters, then it becomes very hard to argue against it. And that brings you back to the beginning. £100 million. 72 hours. Because now you're not asking what he achieved. You're asking something else. Where would Manchester United be this season without Bruno Fernandes?